So as it happens, choosing the right estate agent was the easy part. The interesting part came afterwards, when I had to communicate that decision. Because if you haven't seen the previous videos, well, 5 estate agents came through my home. That's 5 professionals with 5 very different opinions, but only one could win the listing. That's where values move into theory and into real life. How do you honour your decision, respect others' perspectives, and still stay aligned? Grab yourself a cup of tea and we'll get straight onto the video. Previous episode, I shared how 5 estate agents came and appraised and valued our home. Each brought different insights, perspectives, different strategies and different priorities. Then, after carefully reflecting, we chose the agent who felt most aligned with our values. When I let him know he'd won the listing, I explained that we really appreciated the clarity of his approach and the honesty in his valuation. But it was more than that. What really stood out was his determination. He shared an example of a local property that was close to being repossessed by the bank and how he communicated directly with them in order to allow the sale to continue. He spoke to the bank directly on the seller's behalf, as I believe it was a really difficult personal situation that the sellers were going through. And he did all that, to ensure that the sale went through, helped the sellers not go through repossession. That showed real commitment and obviously getting the best outcome for his client. He'd also clearly done his homework on our property, its value and its position in the marketplace, and how it should be presented. He spoke about it with encouragement and excitement. The other thing is our home is listed, grade 2, which sometimes certain buyers would proceed with a little caution. But he actually knew both our building control officer and the listing officer locally. So he felt confident that he could guide and reassure a buyer who may love period properties but isn't always familiar with navigating listing homes. And beyond all of that, he was genuinely a really nice guy. Somebody who we both felt, my husband and I, we could work alongside and get on with during what can be quite an emotional process. Now ensuring that we respect the other 4 agents that came to our home. And something important happened here. Even though we chose one agent, the insights from all the other 4 agents didn't get ignored. Their comments and their perspectives and many years of experience in this industry were still really valuable. So rather than dismiss them completely, we did reflect on the points and suggestions that they had made and tried to strengthen our overall strategy. Alignment doesn't mean ignoring all other voices. It means listening carefully without losing your footing. Now, then we moved into what our strategy was going to be. Once the listing agent was confirmed, we started discussing our next steps: professional photos, floor plan and measurements, drone photography, preparing the market presentation and positioning the property correctly in the market. This is where the emotional decisions becomes practical again, preparing our home so it can be presented to the world. Now, although I'm giving you my situation at the moment, selling our property and relocating and moving on from this chapter of our life, we've been here in this particular house 10 years, but in our location for 20. We all face situations where we need to make a choice between multiple voices, whether this is in business, in relationships, or in major life decisions. What I found throughout this whole process, the key isn't avoiding other opinions. The key is knowing your values well enough to hear them, and that's without being pulled in different directions. And I think it always helps with being comfortable with your decision. Choosing the agent was the first step in aligning with our values, and of course strategy is the next. And what I'm learning about this whole process, and I hope you will too, is that values don't just guide our really big decisions. They shape how we communicate, collaborate, and how we move forward. Selling a home may actually start with a valuation and an appraisal of your home, but the real journey is navigating people, perspectives, and priorities. Also behind the scenes as well, there are lots of other steps to take. Instructing a conveyancing solicitor was one. We was advised to instruct nice and early, and we have done already. Being that we are a listed property, we have been here 10 years, we have done 10 years of renovations. It's about providing 10 years worth of documentation to show what we have done and that it's been done to a professional standard. That's a lot for a solicitor to go through. So we was advised to start that process nice and early. And of course the conveyancing solicitor makes sure that all the legal side is dealt with correctly. The legal side of the sale. The gathering of the paperwork is kind of like this fat. The other thing that I found difficult that I hadn't completely filled in were the contents forms. You may have seen them before, but it's all about your fixtures and fittings. Making sure right at the beginning any potential buyer is aware that what comes with the house. And they're kind of like as a standard rule of thumb where if things are fitted and built in, for example, built-in fridge or built-in fridge, freezer, dishwasher, washing machine, if they're built in, then they're expected to stay within the sale. I have a standalone range cooker that is my pride and joy. However, taking it out of the kitchen will leave a very big hole for a potential buyer to fill. So I may consider selling it separately if the buyer is keen, or they may have their own thoughts of putting in a range cooker or an Arga or something of their own. So that part I haven't made a decision on yet. I also have a huge big American fridge freezer, but that is standalone. So again, it's about seeing what maybe a future buyer would be keen on and interested in. You know, I'm very keen on fitness and keeping myself fit and healthy, and I do have my own gym here, which probably isn't going to be to everyone's cup of tea. Maybe the prospective buyer who's keen on this house also is keen on fitness and is excited about the gym. It's a relatively decent gym, and then I would be happy to include it in the sale. But if their intention is obviously to convert the room into something completely different, then I would rather take the items with me. So that I need to discuss with my solicitor and with the estate agent and get his thoughts on that. These might feel purely administrative, and they are to a degree, but they're also another opportunity to move forwards with clarity and transparency. Next, we'll look at how values help you stay steady during the uncertainty of the selling process. I have bought and sold before over the years. This is not my first time, but we don't move often and things change every time you move. So it's the drama of going through it again. So although alignment isn't all about control, it's also about clarity. In the end, selling your home isn't just a transaction. It's a process of closing one chapter and starting a new one. And we need to do that with care, so our next chapter can begin with clarity. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.